I so hate that gospel. Our lesson today is titled Prayer All Day for Everyone and Everything. Essentially, everything becomes a part of this dialogue with God, which is prayer. Every joy becomes a reason for praise. Every trial is an opportunity to ask for help. Prayer is always alive in life, like embers of a fire. Even when the mouth does not speak, the heart speaks to God. Every thought, even apparently profane ones, can be permeated by prayer, which illuminates the few steps in front of us and then opens up to the entire reality that precedes it and surpasses it. Christian prayer instills an invincible hope in the human heart. By whatever experience we touch on our journey, God's love can turn it into good. In this regard, let us briefly, ever so briefly, look at an instance from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which says, "We learn to pray at certain moments by hearing the word of the Lord and sharing in his paschal mystery. But his Spirit is offered to us at all times in the events of each day to make prayer spring up from us. Time is in the Father's hands. It is in the present that we encounter him, not yesterday or tomorrow, but today, right now." This example highlights for all Christians how our prayers are an intrinsic part of us, originating out of the way first instance of prayer we learned as children, the bedtime prayers. As you matured, more able to mentally grasp concepts of Christianity, you included them into your personal prayers, your faith life, the resurrection of the Word, the mysteries of the Christian faith, and the Father, always and ever controlling the prayer faith time horizon, as he was, as he is, and he will be, unchanged and divine, forever and ever. There are people who look to the future without taking today as it comes. They live in a world of fantasy and don't know how to live the concrete reality of today. They are not mentally healthy, and these people, whom we all know, must pray for their health. For every time the reality of today intrudes or forces itself into their life, there is an inevitable loss of stability of mental and life functioning. One example of this is bipolarism, untreated. It is the most common of diagnoses, but at least 12 other common diagnoses suffer from this. It is prayer that transforms the today we are living into grace. Or rather, it transforms us. Prayer appeases anger, sustains love, multiplies joy, and instills the strength to forgive. grace lives and works in us. The problems we face no longer seem to be obstacles to our happiness, but appeals from God, opportunities to encounter Him. When you have an angry or unhappy thought that brings bitterness, you should stop and turn to God. The Lord, who is there, will give you the right word and advice in order to go ahead without this bitterness. When one is accompanied by the Lord, he or she feels more courageous, freer, and happier. We invite Christians to pray always, not just for our dear ones, but for everyone, including all of those people that we do not know. Let us especially pray even for our enemies, as the scripture commands us to do, for prayer inclines us toward an overabundance of love. Pray for those who are sad, and for those who weep and mourn in solitude and despair, wondering whether there is still anyone who loves them. The prayer of a Christian works miracles by making present the compassion of Christ for the poor. Pray for those who are agnostic or atheist, or those who claim to be agnostic or atheist, but simply have no knowledge, education, or anything religious. My stepsister and my stepmother, as well as my sister-in-law, all fit into these categories. Though neither appreciates or accepts these titles of affiliation, with the death of my father, my stepsister and stepmother, when we speak of them, one is just the widow of my father, one is just her daughter. These titles bind us. Thus I use them as a declaration, an acknowledgement of who they are, and who they shall forever be. They have neither had any education or experience with Christ, but the widow of my father is willing to listen in short bursts. But when my father returned to the church, as he did approximately 10 years ago, he regained his relationship with Christ. Linda, his wife, saw the great joy this brought. She said, his face just glows with happiness whenever he comes back from a mass thing or his other church events. It has so deeply changed him, she said. I would be a fool to not be curious, to not attend with him at times. And just this week, I asked her, would you be interested in meeting Christ? And she said, oh yes, oh yes. She said, he brings you such joy and such comfort. She goes, I would happily meet him. She goes, at any time. She goes, I wish I could make this conversion. I just don't know what to do. And she's sad. And she's mourning. And she's scared. So please pray for her. Because she says if I could just make it before I die, then I can be with your dad and you forever. Please pray. Jesus, in fact, looked with great tenderness on the weary and lost crowd who were like sheep without a shepherd. Compassion, closeness, and tenderness are the Lord's style. Prayer helps us love others, despite their humanity of mistakes and sins, stressing that the person is always more important than their actions. And Jesus did just that. He did not judge the world, but he saved it. We wonder how bad an unhappy life must be for those who always judge and condemn others, instead of opening their hearts, forgiving, justifying others, being close to others, having compassion and tenderness like Christ. Pray for victims of disasters, poor governmental processes, ingrained treachery and graft that holds a system in stasis when bribes are the norm. Vaccinations cannot be distributed to those with greatest medical need, for their system has no ability to see or gauge this. It is all just bribery. Pray for the children, that they may be children again, and never again hear the sounds of a sniper's bullet killing the person walking next to them, the death rattle of a sibling or parent, or bombs approaching their bunker. We need to love each person and remind ourselves that we are all sinners, and at the same time loved individually, unconditionally by God. This way, we will discover that every day and everything bears within it a fragment of God's mystery. It is right and good to pray so that the coming of the kingdom of justice and peace may influence the march of history. But for this to happen, it is important to bring the help of prayer into humble, everyday situations. All forms of prayer can be the leaven to which the Lord compares the kingdom. We are fragile beings, but we know how to pray, which is our greatest dignity as well as our strength. Pray then in every moment and in every situation, because the Lord is near to you. When a prayer is said according to the heart of Jesus, that one prayer obtains miracle.